morning, everybody.
Morning.
So normally when I get the opportunity to give a Dharma talk, maybe once a year, once every 2 years, there's some big thing I want to communicate, some wonderful experience that was a terrible experience or terrible experience that was a wonderful experience, and I want to talk all about it. And that just didn't happen this time. So it's been a real struggle kind of figuring out what to talk about. So that became very obvious this morning when my alarm went off, and the first thing I did was I started eating breakfast, and I still had my retainer in because, I wasn't eating breakfast. I was really here worrying about the Dharma talk, And then I went to leave the house, and my robe is always in the same place every week. And I just, gleefully left the house without the robe. And so I get to be the first guest robe wearer. So we put that in place just in time. So I think I love those Dharma talks where people come and they have books and they're very scholarly and they're quoting things, and I always learn so much and I admire them, and I think about how much I struggle with reading everything from the Compass of Zen to anything else you might pick out, and I just think that's really cool. And I love the scientists and teachers and teacher adjacent folks in our group who just do that so beautifully. Since that's not really my strength, I'm just going to go ahead and just sort of talk about my practice a little bit, and just kind of share my practice. I mean, I got here, I think it was about 12 years ago, and it was, I was this incredibly wound up type A workaholic type. And, I may have known it, I may have had a little sense of it, but my goodness, did my husband and my son know, and did those people close to me know? And, the most horrible thing in my life that could ever happen, happened was I had this wonderful career in this company that I was working for a very long time, more than 20 years, had quickly gotten sold 3 times. And for any of us who've been through this, it makes sense that the new owners with the new money want their people. So if you're one of those people that got a little too close to the sun, you're going to get burned, because you're not sort of there enough doing your job where no one's paying attention. So that's what finally happened one November. And I was so caught up in it that I realized I didn't even have my own phone in my own car. So here I am, being told, the way it worked in this particular company is you see your boss, and then you see a senior person in HR, and one of them has a box. It's empty, so it's your turn. So by the time I collected my few little personal stuff, my little plant and whatever else, and literally had to leave my phone there, my keys, and it was wild, I was about number 300, so it wasn't like it was, a shock. This had gone on for about a year, and at least I almost made it to the end of the year. Be that as it may, it was quite a shock, right? Doing something for a little more than 20 years, and then boom. And the only reason it happened so late is I had actually been out on surgery. And so I got like an extra 2 weeks compared to some other folks. So I had to figure out what to do next. And I didn't even call my family. I'm one of those people that when big things happen, I need my own time to process it. And thank goodness I was struck by the fact that I had a dear friend about my age, in fact a little younger, and she had a really severe stroke, and she had been in Jackson. I guess they have a lot of stroke specialists, they're really good at it. She had been there a while, and me and my crazy type A wound up life didn't think I had the time to go visit my dear friend. And so that's what I did first. Before my family even knew, I said, I gotta go. I don't know where it was coming from, but I said, you're not gonna sit here and be a victim. This is not happening. And you're not gonna go create all this drama in your family either. You're gonna go do something. You're gonna go do something kind of get you out of yourself. So I finally went and spent the day with my friend. Of course, I didn't tell her whole family, all the drama. but they were kind of curious why at like 9:30, 10 in the morning on like a Wednesday. Not that I remember exactly when it happened or anything, but you know, I just said, hey, I had some extra time today, and I know you guys have been having a really hard time. You have a bunch of errands to run. You know, I'm gonna hang out here for the day if that's something you want, and if you don't, just tell me that's fine too. Blah 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 blah, and ended up staying there and kind of got my bearings by spending time with her. You know, I didn't have all the dots connected about why that was. I'm sure you're kind of connecting them yourselves here about what really matters and so on. And then finally later on in the day, I let my husband know. I mean, he knew the second I walked in. He's like, "What? You know, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you sick? What's going on?" And so what ended up happening was I really kind of had this midlife crisis, probably about maybe about 5 to 10 years early, you know. And I had never not been working. I mean, our dad had us with these little part-time jobs from the time we were, you know, this big, you know, in return for, you know, little privileges and stuff. So we had always been brought up with the value of work, and you can't just sit there, you know, and you need to be doing something. Even if you're all caught up in your head, you need to sort of get out of that and go do something. And so it was the first time I wasn't doing any of that. I mean, I was just at home. I was in shock. I was frozen. I couldn't think. You know, it was pretty bad. And what came into my mind was when I was sitting there working on our son's, I think like a social studies class. You know how the 4 areas when you're going through school, it's either something about science, something about math, something about social studies, or something about language arts. So in our family, my husband took the math bit and I took the other 3. And I remember thinking about when he was studying world religions. And I was raised Catholic, like so many of us here. And also like a fair number of us, I was a bit disillusioned. I clearly remember my aunt finally leaving this horribly abusive gentleman and getting a divorce, and then all of a sudden she couldn't take communion, you know? So things like that kept happening where I was like, oh, you know, this Jesus message is so gorgeous and so much about love and acceptance and helping each other. And, you know, how did it become this? You know, this isn't for me to figure out. I just know that maybe there's something else. So I was kind of looking through this with him and looking through the religions and reading about Buddhism and reading about the Eightfold Path and 3 Jewels. And man, it just really resonated with me. Granted, the fact that I was searching helped it resonate. And so like a month after that, I said, you know, let me see if there's some kind of Buddhist something somewhere around in South Florida. And it was literally 5 miles away. You know, it was here. I couldn't believe it. I'd been living here 20 years and I didn't know 5 miles away was this Buddhist temple, Bohansa, the South Florida Zen group. But what did I do next? I told my husband, we gotta have faith, man. We've been wanting to go to Yellowstone for 10 years. I know I don't have a job. I'm gonna be confident that I'm gonna find a job. We're renting a camper. I don't know how much time you're taking off, but I'm taking off 3 weeks. And so is our son. And, you know, maybe if you can squeeze a week or 2 in, we'd love to have you the whole time, but whatever. So long story short, he did what he had to do. And it got, you know, for the first time, he got 3 weeks off. Thank goodness he had incredible job stability. He's a civil engineer and just, you know, God bless him for doing whatever you have to do to survive the politics of large companies. So we did that. And that was beautiful, by the way, as you can imagine, and crazy. I knocked the gas tank off the camper at some point. And, the other 20 days were wonderful. I'll say that. But there's always a little something, right, to keep you humble. It can't just be straight, you know. And that was a funny thing because all our son saw from in the camper was Dad, like having a fit. You know, he couldn't figure out what was happening. Because he couldn't hear the sound because everything was closed and we were both outside. But it worked out great. We got it fixed and everything. So then I come back and I drive here and I'm thinking, this is a ranch house. Like, what is this? I'm not going in there. So I left. And then I came back like another Saturday and I said, what is this? And excuse me, Sunil, for saying this, but I'm like, I'm gonna go in there, I'm not gonna come out. Like, I gotta let somebody know, where I am here. And then I think finally the third time I got out and I saw that there were some shoes and I took a deep breath. It was like the third or fourth time. It was a ridiculous amount of Saturdays, I'll just say that. And I finally came in and, oh my gosh, it was the Sangha. The Sangha is why I'm still here, right? All these years later. And even though the two people who gave me orientation, they're not practicing with us right now. They're on the mailing list, but these two fellows couldn't have been more different. And we used to do the orientation up in the interview room, and it was winterish, by this time, and we used to have the windows open, and we did this orientation, and the three of us were just laughing about everything, but still doing a really good orientation. And then we did the 7 minutes of meditation. And I remember like it was yesterday, I heard this bird, and it was like, I don't know, maybe the first time since I was a kid that I ever took a minute to listen to a bird song. Like, I have to take a breath now because I'm ready to cry over it. It was that intense, just truly what being in the moment. Okay, so truly what being in the moment is like, when you're just so wound up and you're just one step away from everything that you're choosing to not deal with. 1, 2, 3 steps ahead, just ahead is the point. And all of a sudden here's this beautiful bird, and all of a sudden here's these two gentlemen who never met me before in their lives, and were just being so kind and so open with their teaching. And then at this point, Carol and Don, the couple that a lot of you know, were here, and they were doing their usual kind of light bickering back and forth that they do. And I just thought, wow, this feels like my own family, this is fantastic. And that was it for me. I mean, that was it. I mean, I was hooked. And it wasn't that my husband or my son really got involved. It was that they were happy that I was happy, and that finally whatever had been going on for 20 years was starting to change. Okay. And so I kind of bookmarked this talk with the crazy things that happened this morning, and I'm going to kind of bookmark the other end with another equally sort of humorous story. But in the middle, some really serious stuff happened. I would sit on the cushion, and if Martha were here, I could talk to her about this, or if I'm trying to think who else. For sure, Martha. For sure, oh gosh, Helen Heron. I would just be crying. You see how easy I cry. Like, I can have a big smile, but believe me, I'm always one step away from crying. But a lot of times it's joyous crying. It's not bad crying. So it's like nothing to worry about. And I would just be sitting on the cushion, and I mean, these tears were just coming. I'm talking about like the first 3 years. And I would have to tell people, I'm beyond fine right now. I do not want you to be concerned. I feel the warmth and love of this Sangha. And this is me finally taking a look at my life. And the way that taking a look at my life feels is there's just this incredible amount of emotion. And what came out of that journey is, this is quite personal, but I feel okay. I feel okay sharing it. I had this PTSD diagnosis from stuff that happened between 40 and 50 years ago. And I had finally put together that's why there were times where I would have gaps in my day. And of course I thought I was getting Alzheimer's like my mom and my aunt. No, I mean, I was completely having PTSD episodes, but I was so, and it had nothing to do with work. I mean, it had to do with quite serious things from quite many years ago. and some trauma that had happened more than once that I just was not processing in any way, shape, or form. Yet it was completely influencing and populating and informing my life, let's say. And all of a sudden I became aware of it, and it was freaking overwhelming, and I started talking to people I was close enough to, and everybody pretty much was like, yeah, I thought you knew and you just didn't want to talk about it. And I mean, imagine being that separate from who you are. We talk about suffering all the time, and we talk about the the later, but I mean it's here. I mean, if you want abject suffering or deep happiness, it's this moment. It's nowhere else. For me, again, keeping it for me, almost everything has been attributed to not being in the moment. And when you're not in the moment initially, you don't process what happens to you. And then the next moment, you're back in that moment. And then a while, like that movie, The Mission, where you have the missionary with that giant bag of metal that he's just carrying through this rainforest in penance for having truly accidentally in a fit of rage killed his brother, and it's not until it all comes together for him that he finally lets that bag drop. You have so many things in that bag, you don't even know what the heck it is anymore. And I did not realize that I was living that way. I mean, I'm just telling you from my heart. I did not know. I mean, to say I did not know is an understatement. And all I knew is that not only did I have a deep unhappiness, but I was also making the people around me unhappy from time to time by the way I would cope to it when it would try to creep out, but I didn't have a framework to deal with it. So, so I did the right thing. I mean, I found a psychiatrist, I found a psychologist, I started talking about it, I started doing some really, really intense work. And I think, knowing that whatever went on, I could come here in this extraordinarily safe place, and I could sit here and I could ask myself about my clear mind. I could ask myself who I was. I could say I didn't know. And from time to time, I would have a moment of clarity, and that was a very new thing to me, and something that I had to try real hard not to grab onto, because I felt like every time I grabbed it, I didn't see it again for a couple months. It's like that balance. You have to just let it come when it's good and ready, which is also you. And so then that's when you say, I gotta stop thinking about it. I gotta just be on my cushion, and I gotta just let what comes, and I gotta let the movie come, and I gotta acknowledge it, and then let the next thing come. And so more or less, that's kind of what happened. And so I think what's been going on for the last, let's say, not a long time, but maybe 3 years, which relative to having zero moments, I guess 3 to 5 years is a nice long time, of just, I see it coming. When I'm about to have one of those episodes, I have enough warning that there's moments where I can tell myself, but you're not there, you're here. And start saying literally, the floor is brown, the sky is blue, the air is cool, I'm here with the Sangha. And very, very often, just completely on my own. That's enough for nothing else to happen. And then in those moments where that isn't what happens, and so maybe I am in depression for several months, and I do have to dig myself back out. Even almost all the time, as dark as it gets, I know I'm going to get out, because I've gotten out before, and sometimes I haven't even gone there in the first place. And that is just a dramatically different way of how I lived, let's say, my first 40 years. And so I think what I wanted to share with you is that this practice is capable of giving each of us incredible insights that really help dig you out of yourself, that you then see what does bring you joy from moment to moment, and you're able to make your life more about other people and more about what you're giving to them, and more about how you're helping them, and it just digs you out. And so, you know, there were incredible things that my family had to deal with. Our son had a very hard time, starting from the time that he was about 5 or 3 until he was about maybe 13, and I feel like this practice helped me be very, very present for the latter part of it, you know, and help guide him through. We've had, just like every family, we're sort of the older generation right now, and so the few remaining relatives of the generation after us, we've ended up having to be deeply involved in their care, and hospice and funeral arrangements and things like that. And I just feel a strength and a presence about how important it is, and I've just really been able to be there for them and be there for other family members in a way that go back a few years, and I was the one who was the big mess, who needed all the help and couldn't cope, you know. And there's just real strength in this practice, and I think I wanted to share that. And so kind of as far as a conclusion, you know, the Zen Master Sung Song says, try 10,000 times. And so despite everything I told you, most of the time, okay, this is what it's like. So 2 Saturdays ago, I'm working on this koan, right? I've been working on it for 2 years. Okay. Now and again, thank goodness, you know, the Zen Master or the JDPSN will take a little pity on you and kind of like throw you a softball type of the ones that you know you always get now, so you can, you know, have a little success, you know. And they're in a few different sort of categories, and I think for each of us, certain categories we get to the point where you get them, and you see where that hook is, and you don't fall for it, and you get it. And then there's infinitely more categories, at least in my case, where I don't even know where the hook is, and, you know, 2 years in, I just can't say a lot. So Paul M. was there, and to help me, okay, he referred me to a poem in a book that I have, and he said, what I'd like you to do before we meet again is I would like you to read this poem, and then I'd also like you to read every part of this koan, and just try to get in the moment, and just try to see, you know, what you can get. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you know, I'll do that. That's great. I'm gonna get it. And then, you know, what do I do? I go home, okay, and in like 60 seconds, this is what went on in my head. Oh wow, remember that one-day retreat we had a few months ago, and the new lady that I was sitting next to, and helping her with her meals, and I had brought all my books, and she was looking through them, and she asked if she could borrow one, which of course we all always say yes to that. Man, you know, that's the book she took. Man, I better go on Amazon and get another one before my next interview, or I wouldn't have read that poem. And then, you know, the book from Amazon comes, well, by that time I don't remember what poem it is. And then to put the icing on the cake, that wasn't the book she took anyway, so then I had to. So, you know, it gets you every moment of the day. But you sit here, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes before you go to work in the morning, or 5 to 10 minutes before you go to sleep, and it helps me immensely, and I'm very, very grateful to be here today and be able to talk to you, and I'm very grateful for our Sangha. You've helped me more than you'll know.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your wonderful talk. It's such a natural. You speak so eloquently and beautifully. You do, it just comes out. Right? You just.
I'm crying too now.
What's that?
I'm crying too.
Aww.
But it never feels that way before. Before it's like there's nothing, and then what the heck am I going to do and talk about? Like,
but when it's time to talk, you just come forward with very eloquent sincere
Thank you.
talk.
Thank you.
So now the format is now you can ask questions to Anna, or you could ask them to myself, of course. General questions about your practice or whatever you like. Yes, Mark.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, I love hearing you speak because there's always some pearl of wisdom that I can get from you, or some understanding of something you've experienced that helps me in my experiences. There's two things that really kind of leaped out today. And one of them was the fact that, like you, when I first came here to this temple, my very first day visit, I drove up and I said, this can't be the place. It's like all the other houses around here. And so I too left. And I had to come back the next week because I said, no, okay. And the address was right. So that was many years ago. Now, for me, I arrive, it's like, I'm here. It's my home away from home. But as I work outside a lot of times, I find new people arrive, which is wonderful, and they come up to me and they go, is this the temple? It's like I felt, like how I felt, is this the right place, And it made me realize how many people maybe arrive and don't really recognize it, for what it is. And all they have is an address, maybe that they picked up somewhere. And it makes me wonder if we can or should put some type of sign out front so that the new people, something that says Zen or something, this way, or you've arrived, something, that indicates, yes, this is what you have been seeking. You're here, and I think that would be so beneficial. So I got that from your speech, and I hope maybe we can move that further down the road. Also, what I hear when you speak that really impresses me is a lot of faith. You have a lot of faith in your heart, and you know that it'll all work out somehow.
I do.
And that has a lot to do, I think, with this Buddha thing that exists within us, and sometimes you don't know it's there. It gets kind of buried over by our life and the things that occur to us, but yet it's there. And that's where the faith maybe comes from. I don't know. Where do you think your faith comes from? That you think, it's going to work out?
That's such a great question. And I think now it really comes from having had positive experiences in which it did work out. I don't think prior to that I was a faithful person. I think I was a fearful, trying to stay one step ahead from whatever was trying to get me that I wasn't ready to deal with, without a lot of faith. And that was the truth. I mean, and so I think you have people who can have faith without proof. They can read something and they can just have faith, and that's wonderful. But I think for me, I didn't necessarily, and it was only through starting to see things work out that now it is faith without proof. Now it is faith without proof, in a very big faith, in fact.
It almost sounds like that you had to go through some suffering.
Yeah.
What you're saying, and then through the suffering, you were able to develop faith. And which led you further down your path, which is why you arrived here, in a sense. So maybe suffering is something that
It's the mother of all Buddha.
The mother of all
Maybe we all
Buddha.
need to have a little suffering,
Sure.
understand a little non-suffering.
One of Zen Master Sung San's sayings was, if someone would stop sitting or stop practice after many years, say more suffering is necessary. Suffering is the mother, brings us back to this moment.
Yeah.
So definitely. Yes.
So I also connect with the fact that I came one day and to leave. However, when I came, I didn't see any cars. So I was like, is this 20 minutes to see if one car approaches. Nothing. I went home. Thank God for internet nowadays, because our universe will do that for the internet, because that's where I searched the address. And I was able to see it was like a retreat, like one of those that you come very early in the morning at 4 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's why nobody came. Whoever was here, very few, I guess, because it looked like more like people who lived here, like very few cars, came at that time. So I came next Saturday, and that's how I came here. So I think it happens to many of us that we definitely
Yeah.
don't see the sign.
Well, that would be up to Sunil, maybe we could get a sign. We'll try to work on that.
And I also wanted to ask you, sorry, when did you decide to take the presents?
When did I decide?
Like how much after and how going further into this? For me, everything is I'm just coming for the experience. The reality is I haven't committed into the path, let's put it that way. It's like
Sure.
I'm here for the experience. When did you decide, well, I want to walk this path, and how have that changed your experience?
Sure. And there's even a story behind that, where even that didn't go so well, because that was kind of in early days. I got all caught up in my thinking, even with the precepts. I started thinking, well, and I'm kind of chuckling at it now, but I don't mean to, because in the moment it was very real suffering. I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I'm coming here every Saturday. We had these far-flung places we used to practice. I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe you know that place in Davie that didn't have power.
Well, I lived down south.
And we would sit there with the candles in the dark, and
Wasn't there a church?
and then there was a church another time, and
Yeah.
you know, thank goodness this was always our sanctuary. I mean, thank goodness we could come here on Saturday and we have a proper, just beautiful, you know, solid place. But in between, before we had Zen Mystery as a solid, before we were permitted to practice here one night during the week, we had these far-flung places. So I started kind of getting very prideful, to be quite honest, and thinking, well, gosh, I'm going to this practice, I'm going to that practice, I'm going to this practice, and, you know, why is no one talking to me about the precepts? You know, like that. I mean, I'm just being real. Like, that's how I was thinking. Well, take some responsibility for yourself, like you are. You know, you're kind of going about it the right way, in my opinion. And so I thought someone had to like approach you and say, "Oh, we think you're ready," okay? And so I got really all mixed up about the precepts. So then when I finally got clear thinking on the precepts, I said, well, now I have to really practice even harder so that I am good enough to take the precepts, okay? So the first year was all the confusion and the pride and why am I not being asked and I'm working so hard. And then the next year was, well, if I'm gonna take them, I better be ready for them. So let me take another year and overthink them. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was so much thinking. It was so much thinking. And finally, I think it was Carol one night when maybe we all went out to eat one night. We had one practice that was quite late and it was in Davie, and we'd get out at 8:30 and we'd all go to this diner till 9:30 or 10 and get this big table. And I was still like pretty timid back then, which is funny, I know, to say today, but it was a really real thing. And I was just so intimidated by everything. And I finally, brought it up, like, what about precept? And Carol was like, well, if you want to take precepts, go talk to the head Dharma teacher and tell them that's what you want to do. And then they're going to give you feedback on whether or not they think you're ready. And then you talk to the guiding teacher and they let you know if you think you're ready. So I did that and I took my precepts. So to answer your question, to me, you've been practicing. If you read the first 5 and if they resonate with you as something that you would like to try to do, then to me, that means you're ready. And so then you would go talk to Paul first and say, Paul, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? And then you would go talk to Paul M, and then you would take them. There's no
Well, you have to do at least one retreat.
Oh, good, this is the
You're supposed to do
details.
at least one 3-day retreat, and luckily we have the precepts at the end of the retreat.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to do them can do the retreat. So there's some requirement.
Thank you,
I mean, well,
thank you. So at least a 3-day retreat for the first 5.
yeah, and yeah.
And how do you think that has changed your experience? Taking the steps to go.
The big one for me is to not take things not given. As far as being very short-tempered and quick to anger, which is something I've been carrying around for probably from the womb, let's say. I mean, that's how long I identify with it. I think for that one, it's not my right to take away someone's peace of mind, through my own BS. And so when I took the 5 precepts, they all resonated, but I think it just made any kind of ethical type decisions literally effortless. Like, it's just very, very clear situationally what the correct thing to do. It just helped frame this big wide world into these little 5 statements, that if things started feeling overwhelming, sometimes I would just look and say, no, it's fine. Just do that. It's fine. But I think what it helped me with, which I wasn't expecting at all, was getting, my anger and short-temperedness under control, because I was taking what was not being given to me. And I think, yeah.
Any other questions? Did you have a question?
Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just, I wasn't sure you had seen me, so I raised my hand. I just wanted to say, I think pretty much what everybody said here in terms of how you speak. I don't know if you're a public speaker in your job, but if you're not, you have a very natural ability. It's really, I can sense like everybody just being drawn in to listening to what you were saying. It was beautiful. I also connected a lot with the idea that you're crying now, but you're in a good place, and I'm struggling with that, and I think
Yeah.
it's because I also connected, I think, with the idea that I was not connected with my emotions before, and I had no idea why, and I look back and it's like, who was I back then? It's like I had no introspection, no thinking about myself. I was just living, reacting.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I have all this pent-in emotions that have accumulated over, I'm 60, so accumulated
Wow.
over 55 years of my life.
Yeah.
And now any little thing, a Hallmark movie, a puppy, anything, and I'm just gushing. And it's a little embarrassing, especially because culturally men are not supposed to cry.
Absolutely.
And I'm from Latino culture, so we're not ever supposed to cry.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I'm battling with forget that, let that go. Men can cry. But it's a weird mixture, because also when I cry, I actually feel happy in a way. It's like a release. So I really resonated with you mentioning that.
Thank you.
And the last thing is, you had mentioned about everybody that drives here. This is my first time, and had I not seen a picture on the internet about how this looks, I think I probably would have turned around too. but I don't know, in my mind I keep seeing a poster outside that says, "You are here where you're meant to be."
So,
And if I had seen something like that, it's like, oh my God, this is
this is the
exactly
place.
my
This is the place. Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
And for everybody here, and for what you guys are doing. This feels really home.
Well, welcome, and
Thank
come
you
back.
so much.
suffering, you're ripe to really
Yeah.
take a look at yourself, even though how painful it is. I've been going through a lot, myself, and you just slow down and take a look at what's going on in your life, and you can really consider it. You can see how thoughts are like they're empty, they're like sounds in a way. Like if you hear a dog barking, you hear it and you recognize it, but we have a thought in our head, we hear it, or then we hold on to it. So our problem is we hold on to our thoughts and we make suffering. At least that's my problem. So I think that's so we try to say put it down, put your thoughts and your conditions and your opinions down, and just go straight. So please come back and practice with us, because you're a wonderful moment, even though it's very painful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Freddie.
Thank you. Sincerely, like everyone said, yeah, you're a natural. I wanted to take this opportunity to say to you that I really admire you quite a bit, a lot of you, all of you, for real. You guys have took it upon yourself to take this responsibility for your lives, right? And be here, be in the moment, be present, and despite the suffering and despite the trouble that you're going through, you're here. And I really resonated with a lot of things that you said. Just the trauma from childhood, and the not being here in the moment, and the everyday life. I have 2 kids, and not being present for them, and it just the cycle of like beating yourself up about it, and then you're like oh no, I have to be here, but then you're not good enough, or things like that. It's just so crazy to experience, during that tumultuous time in your life. I can't even imagine how that must have transpired. But I don't know if I have a question exactly, but just the a lot of the things that you said, like the rope, the retainer, the not the being here, or the being in the present moment, and then bringing yourself back. I feel like it's definitely a good reminder for me, at least, that those are the being in the moment. So thank you. I appreciate
you.
appreciate your.
It always amazes me how similar we are as human beings.
Yeah.
Our suffering and our joys too. But suffering brings us back to this moment. And how so you resonate with me for sure.
Yes, I want to say, Anna, thank you so much. I really resonate with a lot of things that you said, things that I'm going through right now. So thank you so much for sharing, because that way it's like you are not alone. Really.
Yeah, we are.
Sometimes you feel like I'm here and everybody's so happy, especially with Facebook and Instagram. Everybody's having the perfect life, and I'm the only one.
Sorry, but I feel the same.
So
Absolutely.
So, and that also shows that we are all capable of transforming whatever is happening inside of us, and really being able, whatever we were programmed with, and that the planet doesn't know about all these things, because we're never taught about being in the present moment, that acknowledging our feelings, and but there's a place many places that we can go and be able to acknowledge that and change the life of many, including the future generation, that we can get together and find all these beautiful virtues that it's our right to have, like the faith and be in a group that really resonates with everything from a very deep and authentic and compassionate space, not just this very superficial that sometimes you go out.
The practice is too, to be honest with you, it's too difficult to be superficial. You know, it hurts too much. I mean, it's not easy to sit on your cushion and look at your mind and your suffering.
And you need to be very brave. Actually, it's
Well,
not all-
it takes a lot. Yeah,
this is not for everybody.
it takes a lot of courage.
No one. I mean, like
No, your
we are
mind,
so brave.
can be a terrible. Yeah.
And
takes a lot of
confronting
courage.
all our deep fears, because for generations we were told avoid them, don't look at them, and many people cannot do it, and I have understood that too, because sometimes like I want everybody. This is not for everybody. This is really, you need to be a very brave soul to
We're
be
blessed in a way to be able to be drawn to this, to have this
because confronting all
opportunity, or just have the karma or something to give us a method or way to take a look at ourselves, and then have the family, our sangha. It's quite a blessing.
And I think you do it when you're ready, and you don't know you're ready till you're ready. I mean, I sat on the cushion for 3 years, I mean, truly a hot mess, just tears, and just didn't know what was gonna come next, and just had to stop worrying about that, and just had to keep showing up. And it took years. And then, like the story I shared at the beginning and the end, it's not like any of us are done. I mean, it's never over. You're just trying every day in that moment. And I mean, while I really appreciate the beautiful things that you said about me speaking, what's just so, I guess, curious about that is I really have an incredibly hard time doing it until I get started. I mean, the last probably 12 to 24 hours where it's just, I was really kind of just nervous and no matter what I thought I would talk about, oh, don't say that, oh, don't do that, oh, and then thankfully what does happen, as George pointed out, about once a year when it finally is time, I'm not sure exactly what happens, but I think it's just the strength of the Sangha. It's just be real, just share your practice. We're supposed to be here when you give a Dharma talk to share what your practice is like for you. So just do that, whereas, and so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
And so it's that way for me, that the right before part kind of makes you not want to do it, but then it's like, no, just do it. And then it's almost all the time it's okay. So that really helps me a lot, hearing that from you. Maybe I won't put myself through so much suffering every time it's, and say, oh, it's going to be okay. Just go ahead and believe it. And just do it. Just
Hearing
don't
that
worry
from
about
you
it.
just helps me, because even though I've been practicing for 12 years and I have these long rows, but I'm still the same. I see my suffering. It's less overwhelming. It doesn't, sweep me away.
Yeah.
But I can see it clearly, and I can see, more importantly, I can see how I make it. How I make it with my thinking and my ideas, and they're truly empty. When the more you practice, you realize your thoughts are empty, but we're conditioned, and we have this karma to hold on to them. So this practice really helps with that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
No, thank you for your talk. The part that I identified with was the sort of crazy work part, but then especially when you decided, you lost your job and then you decided just to take off for Yellowstone, like screw it, I mean, that was the Zen part to me. It got me thinking about Zen and freedom and how we, we cling to these things like jobs and work and all these expectations, and the way we think, everybody, it's our perceptions of the way we think that other people think we should live.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
And I've often pondered this whole idea of, not really a question, but this whole idea of Zen and freedom, and what are the dimensions when they talk about it, it gives us freedom,
Yeah.
what are the dimensions of freedom? And there are moments, where being kind of stuck in those kinds of things, and you're in meditation or whatever, and you come up with, it comes into my mind like, I don't need to live this way. Like I really, we're so limiting in the ways that we allow ourselves to live. You could pick up at a given moment and say, screw this, I'm gonna go to Yellowstone for the next year. And why not? You could do it. You could do it. Like there is no reason why not, right?
Yeah.
Yet we limit ourselves so much, and I think it's the karma and all this stuff that, if we can come in touch with that stuff, we can begin to, Zen can put us in touch with more of that kind of freedom. Not, in the moment with our thoughts where we're trapped in our karma, and all of a sudden you become aware of it, right? And then you become sort of free of it a little bit because you're able to see it. In that at that level, and then it also just opens up, I think, life to other kinds of possibilities. So that's I identified a lot with that idea of, I don't know, if there are other ways of thinking about Zen and freedom and how those things are connected.
Well, for me, if you can deal with somewhat of a restricted practice, you get freedom of mind. That's
so true.
That's what I practice for. You get freedom of these obsessive thoughts and crazy thoughts. And then freedom to pick up and do whatever. But freedom of the suffering is difficult. That's what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. And it's not to say we didn't need to immediately drastically change how we lived, temporarily, and then, and try other things for a while, and here I am as a woman, and I know how I struggled, but I know in our American society here, oh my gosh, all the guys, you just have so much more pressure on you than I did at my worst moment, and you just do. It's like the society pressure of who you're supposed to be, and you mentioned earlier how you're not supposed to express your feelings. And yet how healing it is when you say, no, I'm not going to do that, and I am going to express my feelings, and I am going to feel, and how much better that makes you feel. And just this whole thing that you're supposed to be taking care of everybody and everything. That's just an amazing, that's more pressure than I have. Like I might have that in terms of what kind of mom I'm supposed to be, but you kind of have it with everybody, your partner, your work, if you have kids. Ugh. So I'm just saying, I get you. I get what you mean, and long term it did work out. There were a bunch of iterations. Let me do my own company. Let me go work at this awful place. Let me go do this. Let me go do that. It took a while, but it does work out, and not necessarily how you think it's going to or how you want it to, but I had an incredible blessing. An incredible blessing. I was at a friend's funeral. This was a couple years ago, and ran into an incredible number of people from my industry, and of course we weren't going to talk work at this funeral, but I had gotten up to talk about my friend, and again it wasn't planned, and again right before I was like very, very nervous about it, and but I saw his two young kids, and I had lost my own dad when I was 20, and they were 18 and 16, and the mom was about the same age as my mom when it happened. And so I only realized later that's what was going on, and so I guess whatever I said in those moments, because she had a microphone for people to to come up and share memories of her husband, and next thing I know, after an appropriate amount of time passes, that company gave me a call, and that's where I'm working now, and it's like this fantastic job. I love my job. I love my boss. It's a decent company with, they they appreciate and respect their employees, and you know, I just can't say enough good things about this company. Wasn't looking for that when that happened. You know, there's this thing about when you're grabbing, you don't get, and there's this thing when you're just here, just go be in your moment, but be in that moment, be fully in that moment, whatever that moment is, whoever it's with. There's something that goes on there that, you know, that there's faith. I have faith in that. I have faith in just try to be in that moment. Try to pay attention to who's around you. Try to see what they need. Try to just try. And there's something going on there.
We have time for one more question.
Okay. Did somebody else have a question? Mine is up.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So Anna, thank you. Thank you so much. What I feel is like so much genuineness, you know, and just very heartfelt. Everything that you say is so heartfelt, you know, and I appreciate that. I resonated with the part about the bird, hearing the bird. I've had moments like that, and I also fall into that trap of like, grasp it. Like,
Yeah.
how do I hold that all the time?
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's silly. But anyway, you know, we were talking about suffering, and you know, obviously part of your experience, you know, there's suffering involved, all of us really. And it's so, for me, the experience has been so paradoxical, because I think for a long time the practice was about, in my mind, this is just me personal, like getting rid of suffering, you know, getting like fixing things about myself, you know, and I can be still today, I can be very rigid about things, very obsessive about things, very organized about things. And for a long time, it was about, how do I get rid of that? How do I get rid of that part of myself? How do I get rid of this suffering? And it's such a paradox, and I think George, you know, maybe paraphrasing this, maybe I heard it the way I wanted to hear it, but it's like you sit on the cushion, and I still have all those things. I haven't gotten rid of those things.
Yeah.
And I come to a point where like, I still suffer, but it's like the relationship to those things changes. So it's like, and that for me was like, it's such a like, whoa, you know, it's so paradoxical, because as long as I wanted to get rid of it, I kept suffering, you know, and then the moment that I was like, well, it's just how it is right now, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like, it doesn't mean the suffering went away, the obsessiveness went away, the rigidness went away. You should see me at home, like constantly, like I have this habit where I'm constantly checking countertops to see if they're dirty. Like, cause some of them are
My
dark.
wife would love you.
Yeah, cause they're dark, you know, so you can't see it, so I'm constantly touching it. And my wife is like, stop it, you know? And I still do that. It's funny, you know, it is a very funny thing, those quirks, you know? Because I think about ants, and I think about, you know, and I think about stickiness, and I think it's like all these things, and I'm like, those things don't go away, but I don't suffer because of them anymore. I'm not like always thinking, like, oh man, this is such a problem, I have to get rid of this. It's like, and I'm wondering, like, your experience with that kind of, because I think for people, maybe, again, my idea, if you're kind of new, you know, you're thinking, oh, this is about getting rid of what's wrong with me, or my suffering. And in a way that's true, but it's also...
Well, it happens naturally, but it's not, our intention is to look into ourselves, and what am I, and what is a human being? Yeah, that's what we practice, to wake up and then to help people. Initially, when you sit, you may experience more suffering, because how often are we sitting quietly? Most of the time we're on our phone or at the TV. So initially we may start having more, realizing you're having more thoughts. But actually they're just, you know, they've always been there the whole time. Yeah.
And one quick thing, yes. No, you go.
Oh, I am Anna's husband, Kirk. What I've seen Anna do over the 12 years is learn how to accept me for the person I am. And that is
good.
That is a big thing. And I could totally understand you wanting your counters clean. because I am the same way too. I have to have my shoes polished. I have to have every single thing in place, and it used to drive her crazy because she thought it was a reflection on her as a woman, because she thought that she had to keep the house clean, and I am the one who goes around, washes the clothes, clean the floor, do all of that stuff, because that's what
You
brings
do
me.
it. That's what he does.
That is what brings me my meditation. That's how I meditate, and I believe that Anna has accepted that, you know, and she has learned to just let me be who I am,
It's true.
with my good ways and my long list of bad ways. And so yeah. So
That's wonderful. Yeah, won't anything?
So no, I just wanted to add to that, that I learned, and this is what Maria Montessori says, we have tendencies, each person have tendencies. And when you learn, she was big about observation. You see the child, you see who they are. And we were put in a place for one reason. I like order, my family is a little bit messy, and for many years I questioned, why am I here? And I learned that I bring order to my family. And my family bring me relax. I have to learn as well to let go some things. So it's this dance that we do with everybody. So learning who we are, what our strengths are, instead of why am I this way, it's like this is who I am. What can I bring and what can I take? Because that sometimes it can be obsessive. But I also wanted to thank you because as a woman, I felt very supported as soon as the first time I came, I think it was Paul who gave me the training. And but next I met you, and as a woman, you were the one in leadership, which is, we don't see many women in leadership.
It's true.
And we don't see many women in practice. So I felt very supported and I know taking a leadership role is extra work, and you do it so beautiful with the email, with everything, and I was like, wow, I'm so grateful to have a woman in leadership in our group, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I was so happy to see women coming to practice when they both first got here, so, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Anna, for your wonderful talk. And next week we have our one-day sit. And today's the last day to sign up. If you want to sign up, you can sign up online, right? It's on the website. South